Rock Jocks does not express the views of any Mountain West Conference members or their affiliates.
If you smell what the Rock is cooking.
We continue our breakdown of Mountain West Conference teams. We do a little bit of division talk, and this is the second episode of Rock Jocks.
Ladies and gents, houses and tents, welcome to episode 2 of Rock Jocks. I am one of your hosts, Steve Schwartzman. How's it going, Preston?
It's doing. I'm doing great, man. I'm Preston Croshaw, the other host.
Yeah, and we are your hosts. We're very excited to get started. We hope you enjoyed episode 1, not necessarily of Star Wars, but of Rock Jocks.
Hey, I enjoyed episode 1 of Star Wars.
That's true. There's lots of first episodes out there that we liked.
That's
maybe
true.
Someday we'll talk pilot episodes of TV shows we liked.
Okay.
But for now, let's talk sports. What do you say?
Let's do it.
All right, today we are going to break down 4 more schools in the conference. Then we're going to have a little bit of a division debate. We're going to check out some key matchups that you should look out for this season in football. We're going to announce an upcoming segment we like to call Ask the Jocks, which you should be excited for. Get on Twitter at MWC Rock Jocks. You'll know why.
Yes.
And, of course, we're going to end the night with a little bit of what we learned.
Perfect.
So, love it.
Let's get it started then. So continuing our breakdown from last week, we left off with Fresno State. So alphabetically, that would leave Hawaii up for our next our next breakdown. Let's keep the same format, doing some interesting facts.
Let's
what
do
you
it.
got?
All right, over in Hawaii, I actually really love this fact. I thought this was kind of cool and historical. Hawaii is the only state in the country that can claim to have its own royal palace.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I actually thought it was really interesting. It's called the Iolani Palace. It was once governed, at least it was last time it was governed was by King. I'm so going to butcher these names, Hawaii fans, but because I love you and I love your university and I respect you, I'm going to try these. King Kalakaua and Queen Lili Uokalani.
That was pretty good. Hey.
Yeah, tweet us how to pronounce those. I did my best. Were the final monarchs, and they were overthrown back in 1893. And then the building was used as provisional government. Yada yada yada. Was done used as government in 1969, and now it's used for tourist needs since 1978. But their own royal palace. It's a really really beautiful building. So
That's awesome.
Hawaii fact.
That is very cool. My interesting fact is more kind of just like a shout out to the fans out there on the islands. We need to fill up Aloha Stadium. I think obviously it's tough to fill up a 50,000 seat stadium with the population that you've got out there, but I mean Aloha Stadium is it's a big one. They use it for a lot of different events, obviously the Pro Bowl and such. But I think there's more Hawaii fans than we average attendance there, and I think that it's I just think that we should get the word out and fill it up.
So what are we looking at? That's what, like a 50,000 seat stadium?
50,000.
And we're filling about 30.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not bad, but I
It's
think
not
we got a
bad.
shot. They probably got room for 2.
Yeah.
You got to think they got room for 2 more.
Hey, anybody want to send us tickets? Maybe a few airline tickets as well. Steve and I will be very happy to fill some seats out there.
I'll even take a monorail seat when that monorail gets built.
Hey, I would. How long would that ride be? That'd be a really long ride.
A little monumental.
Yeah. Well, let's talk some football. So, what do you think about Hawaii, Steve?
That's a pretty. Is it $64,000 question? Is that the show?
I don't know.
It's an interesting question. 3-9 last year. I would say it's a disappointing season. There are a lot of facts that could tell you that Hawaii should be on the up and up. But it's really hard to tell. You look at a coach like Norm Chow. He had the resume to show that he could get this team to where it needed to be successful. But right now, it's hard to see. The quarterback situation is going to be the biggest question. I actually am quite a fan of Taylor Graham, one of their transfers out of Ohio, who honestly has made some noise. And correct me if I'm wrong, Preston. Has he played any college football technically at this point?
No, he's not.
So he hasn't played a single snap. So that, of course, is hard to tell. But outside of that, I mean, there's nothing that says their defense is going to make too many necessary improvements. I personally would like them to. I believe football's great when a team like Hawaii is good. I think it
See-
adds a lot, but it's hard to tell that that's going to happen with the state of their offense.
Well, it's really hard to say that Hawaii is going to improve. They had a really tough go at it last year. Their offense was abysmal. I mean, they were not good as far as yards go. They were 101st in passing yards and 114th in the FBS. So that's pretty tough. And looking at, you mentioned Norm Chow. He's got a great resume, but really since 2004 hasn't done a lot as far as running an offense. We can look back at his days before that. He ran some really good offenses, but it kind of just fell off. And you like the nostalgia, the sentimental nature of hiring Norm Chow, coming back home and leading the team and making a good go at it, but I just don't see it happening this year. You mentioned the defense, but I honestly think their defense is going to be pretty good, all things considered. I just don't know if their offense has the firepower to put up points, and that's a big problem. You mentioned Taylor Graham. He could be a pretty good quarterback. I hope he's better than Sean Schroeder. I mean, nothing against the guy. He tried his very hardest, but he threw for 11 TDs and 12 interceptions. So that's not great.
That's not going to garner wins, I
No.
think is what it really comes down to. And I think on defense there is some stuff to speak of. They run a pretty balanced attack at linebacker. And I like what they bring out. You've got 42 tackles at Art Laurel. Kamalani Aloha has 32 tackles. I really think they can run a good balanced attack on defense. But again, it's hard to say. It's one thing you could say is Taylor Graham has the potential to do some good. There is another name in the mix with quarterback, and I know that you know it, and I don't.
Higgins.
Off the top of my head. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
I totally had missed on that. But Higgins has a shot. Graham has a shot. You'd never know what Schroeder's going to do. But for me, it comes down to weapons. Who are they throwing to? Their best guy at wide receiver last year was Billy Ray Stutzman, which is the least Hawaiian name
Ever.
I've ever heard. But posed decent yardage, but is he going to be a weapon enough for these guys?
Yeah.
So it really comes down to whether that attack comes. I personally don't see Hawaii making too much of an improvement. That's just kind of where I see it. And why I say that is because their schedule to start off, their first 5 games
Brutal.
is as tough of a schedule as I've ever seen. And I said this before on other I've been saying this for months, so I don't think anyone who's heard me talk about this doesn't say it's new. You start off at USC, then you go at Oregon State, then you go at Nevada, then you play Fresno and San Jose State. It's hard to say they win any of those games.
Absolutely.
And then how do you take 0-5, what could be pretty rough, and then push that through to the rest of the conference schedule? But all
Yeah.
that being said, who knows? Who knows what Higgins or Graham could bring to the table?
Yeah, and the offense hopefully will improve. I think the defense will continue to get better. I really think a guy that we haven't mentioned quite yet, Bo Yap, on the defensive line, he is a really good defensive lineman. He had 10.5 tackles for loss last year, and
Oh, wow.
he's he gets a lot of disruptive plays in there, but their linebackers are good. I think they'll continue to get better. At the running back position, Joey Iosefa, he's a big back. I think that he's going to have a better year than he did last year, helping that team to improve. But where do you see their overall record going this year, Steve?
I mean, to be completely frank, again, it's hard to tell with their quarterback situation. I personally right now don't see them going past 3 wins. I feel like finishing off the year against Army is a pretty decent possibility for a win.
Yeah.
UNLV and Colorado State are potentials. Other than that, it's pretty darn up in the air. For the record, I hate to say that. The Rainbow Warriors are a team that I think make football great when they're good. I just think right now there are a lot of pieces to put together before they can necessarily be successful. So I honestly see them right now as a 3-win team.
I agree. I think that I'm going to put that my prediction right at 3 wins as well. I have a hard time seeing how that schedule is going to help them toward any wins this year. Like you said, USC, Oregon State, Nevada, Fresno State, San Jose State to start. and then you have to go at Utah State, at Wyoming. It's going to be tough. And another thing that you throw into that mix is the travel. Jet lag. That's the farthest program from anywhere, obviously. I mean, they're out on those islands that are just so far out there. It's going to be tough for them this year.
Yeah, quite honestly, the NCAA was not nice to them as far as scheduling was going. I think there's a lot of travel issues going on. One of the biggest, I say, is I know that they have a 6-day layoff. I think it's when they play home at Colorado State, and then they travel to Utah State that Saturday, and they play Colorado State on a Sunday. So they get one less day traveling from Hawaii to Utah in the cold. Scheduling was not nice to them, and that's a difficult thing for them to possibly pick up anymore.
Well, yeah, and then they have Utah State, and then they go back home for classes in Hawaii. Then they have to go all the way from Honolulu to Navy.
Good gracious.
Yeah, so you're going not only across the country but across the Pacific Ocean and then across the United States. So that's going to be a tough couple weeks.
Yeah, for student athletes, man. Gosh, you know what? Every Mountain West listener should be a Hawaii fan that weekend against Navy. Really?
Just say, hey, do you know what, Hawaii fans, we love you. Just do your best. It's going to be tough.
For your moral sake, win that game, please.
Yeah.
Please. But yeah, there's Hawaii. So let's take a move on. We're going to head out to the Great Silver State, talk about the Nevada Wolfpack. What you got for me, Preston?
Nevada Wolfpack. Well, I really like this. The other day I was doing some research on Nevada. I thought I'd look up Nevada football on YouTube, and I found a gem, an absolute gem. It is called We Ball.
How did I know?
We Ball by Jimmy Dukes, featuring Chemistry. And if you have not heard this, you should pause our podcast. Just pause it for about 3 minutes and 55 seconds. Go to YouTube. Pull this up. It is worth a listen and a watch. He's just shaking his head at me right now.
You played this for me right before we started recording, and I still can't get the friggin' thing out of my head.
Yeah, well, it's a catchy tune.
Catchy as all heck, I'd say.
it's a great tune. I really enjoyed how they take some jabs at the rebels from UNLV in the song. I thought that was an interesting little fact for you.
Love you some Wolfpack. Not only made cool by the NWO, but also by the University of Nevada. My fact, a little less awesome, but I still think this is actually pretty cool. So essentially, you've been to Nevada, Preston, right?
Yes, I have.
So how married are the names Nevada and Desert?
Very.
Quite married, like long, happily married.
Oh, yeah.
Those names. Nevada is very much a desert state. However, the Sierra Nevada mountain range, right near Reno, and the Ruby Mountains near Elko are the only places in the state that actually get snow half of the year.
Half of the year.
So if you're in the Nevada area, you're looking to get some snow, it's out there. And I actually thought that was really interesting that actually for a good half the year you can find snow on those mountain ranges. So
well, that's good to know. I mean, that's your only chance at skiing is Reno.
Exactly. Do not judge a book by its climate. So.
Exactly, or its a supposed name of a desert state. So there you go. Thank you very much, Steve.
There we are.
Well, let's talk football. I think Nevada is a very interesting team. We were talking about them earlier. Cody Fajardo is the big name. I mean, at quarterback, he's a do-it-all guy. He's got 2.7 thousand yards thrown, 20 TDs, as well as 1,200 yards on the ground. So he can do it all for you. He's going to run, he can pass, and they run the pistol offense out there. My biggest question is how do they transition to the new coaching staff under Brian Polian? You know, they're losing a legend, and I think that if they can continue with their success that they've had, it'll be a great year. But what do you think?
Coaching is the huge question. I can't say much about Brian Polian other than being related to Bill Polian, who was an associate with the Indianapolis Colts. Name drop. Anyway, coaching is a tough situation with that. I mean, I can't say, again, much about him. other than this is technically, from what my records say, his first head coaching job.
Yeah.
He did come off success as an assistant at A&M, had some success at Stanford and Notre Dame, Central Florida, has a good track record under those fields. However, this is his first head coaching job. He's working with not necessarily an unorthodox player, but, a different style player in Cody Fajardo. Is that going to be a good match? And then my biggest question, as we've seen in the past at other teams, really comes down to defense, and if that's going to be something that's going to play for them. Obviously, they have a solid play at quarterback with a guy like Cody Fajardo. You're hardly going to find a multi-weapon guy like that. He's made big men out of his receivers. I feel like they're pretty well set on offense. It really comes down to, do they have the defense to take down what is going to be some increasingly stiff competition in the West Division?
Yeah. Well, and you look at Brock Hecking on their defensive line. He had 10 tackles for loss, but those are pretty much all sacks, which is great. But as far as stuffing the run goes, they were one of the worst in the country. In the stat of runs for negative yardage, they were last. So it's going to show that they're not exactly good at getting in the backfield and stopping running backs. They can get in the backfield and hit a quarterback from time to time, but the big question is, can they shore up their run defense? And my big question as well is at running back. This system with the pistol offense is made for a good running back. It's very running back friendly, but they're bringing in completely inexperienced guys with Kendall Brock and Don Jackson. Mm-hmm. Don Jackson is a transfer. He looks to be pretty good, but they're very inexperienced. Kendall Brock only had 1 carry last year. 1 carry for 4 yards. So we'll see how those guys develop into that offense. And I know that one of your big questions was at offensive line. Steve.
Absolutely. Do they have the necessary experience to protect a guy like Fajardo for another year? And everything that I've seen says not necessarily. I feel like the O-line is a huge question there. And you look at some of their big matchups where they head to Fresno, where they're going to be heading to Boise, at San Diego State. Those are tough road games against solid offenses, which means that Fajardo really needs to be explosive to maintain. And does the offensive line protect him in that? I feel like that is the ultimate question. If there's any way that they can, you allow Fajardo to be a superstar, he may carry you to some solid upset wins, and he makes some noise in that division.
Yeah.
But that's the kicker, and it's hard to say that that's there for them.
Well, their offensive line, like you were saying, is a big question mark. Joel Bitonio, Joel Bitonio and Matt Gallis are really the only guys that come back with any experience. I mean, Sebastian Tretola had 4 starts last year, but other than that, you're looking at a very inexperienced, very young offensive line, and they're going against tough teams. I just don't know how they can protect Cody against guys like DeMarcus Lawrence at Boise State, and that's going to be a tough go for them. Where do you see them finishing out the year, Steve?
This is a really interesting case for me because I honestly am a Fajardo guy. I like how he plays. I think he can make some good noise. I'm really at odds there. Really, to me, it comes down to the same questions we were asking after their bowl game against Arizona last year, which was, does Fajardo have the staying power to stick some big games and finish them at the end? And you look at how quickly Arizona's able to score against them there at the end.
Well, don't blame Fajardo for how quickly,
I am absolutely not. I'm absolutely not. Yeah, he was not playing defense, obviously, but it's one of those, does he have the ability to close out a game so that doesn't become an issue for them? He's the strength that overpowers weaknesses.
Yeah.
In my opinion, I think Nevada has the potential to be, honestly, a 9-win team. I see them sticking at 7 wins, however. I don't know that they can handle some of their road schedule as strong as I can. You look at San Diego State, Boise, Fresno. I think they have the potential to pull off one of those wins. I would probably say if any of those SDSU, but definitely not all of them, if not two of those three. And I think those are the games that really are going to help them kind of engage any sense of status. So right now, I pretty well see them sticking at 7 wins.
Yeah, I think that's a good prediction. I just look at their schedule, and their schedule is a lot like this. They play their hard games on the road and their easy games at home, which doesn't help you at all. If you want to be playing against a very good team, you want them on your turf. And unfortunately, they've got to go at UCLA, at Florida State, at Boise State. I think that's going to be tough. Obviously, they get a little bit of a break with San Jose State and BYU at home. But other than that, they're heading to Fresno as well. I think that this schedule does not give them a lot of breathing room. I think that they're going to be a 6-win team this year, maybe get a bowl bid. But I don't see them pulling off some of these upsets. I love Cody Fajardo just like you do. I think they're going to take a little bit of a step backward with the absence of Chris Alt, their legendary coach who invented the pistol. They're going to have a little bit of a transition period.
And I definitely agree with you. I think that they're just in a transition phase. I see a lot of good success coming out of Nevada. You look at Kaepernick, you look at Fajardo, I think they're becoming a pretty good mainstay for quarterbacks. So we'll have to see in the future. But right now, it seems like they're sitting pretty right where they are. With that, why don't we head a little bit more east, and just a little bit more east?
Yeah, just a little bit
more. My geography correct?
Yes, but
sports is my knowledge. Pop culture is more my knowledge. Geography,
south.
Not my knowledge. But a whole ton more south. Let's head out to Albuquerque,
New Mexico.
Talk about the Lobos.
I love me some Lobos. My interesting fact about the University of New Mexico is actually about their soccer program, which I know that we're talking about football specifically because we're getting to that time of the year. But their soccer program, their men's soccer program, has made a lot of noise in the past couple of years, and they've got some players that have been drafted, most notably Devin Sandoval. I think that they have been doing a great job down there with their soccer. Obviously, people knock on them for their football program, but their basketball program's been really good. Their soccer program is really good. So you can't overlook the University of New Mexico for their athletics at all.
Absolutely. I certainly wouldn't. My fact about New Mexico that I've always enjoyed, and this is a pretty well-known event, and actually this is really cool if you've ever headed out to Albuquerque to check it out. And I love it. I don't know if you've ever been to this. Every October, and it's the name that gets me every time, Albuquerque is home to the Albuquerque International Balloon Fiesta.
Balloon Fiesta?
Yeah, this goes on for a little over a week every October, and they host all kinds of awesome events. They're very well known for their affinity for hot air balloons, for events of that nature, and they'll host everything from different balloon displays. Obviously, they give out rides. There's a rodeo. There's a fair. But the coolest event they have, and I love this, and if you ever head out in October to Albuquerque, you have to go to the Balloon Fiesta, and you have to check out their annual Balloon Glow event. And it's one of the nights they have their balloons on display in the middle of the night on ground, so everything is glowing, and they essentially hold a fair with all of their shaped balloons. Obviously, I'm on the radio, so I couldn't really tell you what it looks like. It's such a cool spectacle. And it's one of my favorite tourist attractions. So I could not go without talking about the Balloon Fiesta. So whatever you're doing this October, spend some time out in Albuquerque.
That sounds awesome. I'm going to have to spend
Fiesta.
some time there.
Absolutely.
Let's talk football. What do you think about the Lobos this year?
If there ever was a sleeper team in the history of college football, it's the New Mexico Lobos.
Oh, yeah.
I think they have so much to speak of. You've already heard how much I love the name and caliber of Casey Carrier and his ability. His numbers to me speak for themselves. 5.2 yards per carry, 1,400 yards last year. Cole Gouch has a bit at quarterback to prove, obviously. It looks like there was a little inexperience there, and that's fine. But on top of that, I think defensively, they have the ability to step up strong. They have some good consistency. They come in at only 4 wins last year, but 5 of their 9 losses were less than a touchdown.
Yeah.
So lots of potential out there. I think a very strong team. They are definitely that team you absolutely cannot sleep on. I think they could make some serious noise.
I absolutely agree with Bob Davey taking the helm there last year, really establishing an identity of a team that, you know what, we're going to run the ball, we're going to slow down the pace of the game, and we're going to dictate what you do. And I really like his philosophy. He wants to develop a culture and make a new, a new dynasty at New Mexico. He wants to develop something that actually grows because they have been mediocre to bad for such a long time that he wants to take the helm and say, you know what, we want to make this program something to speak on.
And that's gutsy for a team like New Mexico, given what offenses are like in college football now. You talk about the Oregons and schools like that just legitimately want to sprint in one or maybe 2 directions for 60 minutes straight. And his ability to say, no, we're going to run the ball. We're going to slow down the game. We are going to lead the nation in possession time, make sure that they have to play our pace. I think it's a smart strategy. And though I don't think they come to screaming success, they're on their way to being a strong team who holds a set strategy. And I agree. If it works, it's one of those things that could slowly change the culture of football. Now, I'm not saying it's going to form some sort of revolution, but I think it's a smart strategy, especially where you have the caliber of running backs that you do. You've got linebackers and defensemen that can hold their own on defense. It's a smart strategy.
It really is. You look at their team, and Coach Davey is developing something for the future. But I think that talking about this year, they're going to do really good things. Last year, they averaged 300 yards on the ground every game. That was 5th in the FBS, which, everyone wants to talk about how the game is transitioning to the pass and, going more like the NFL. But if you can establish something that you're good at and do it well, then you're going to be dangerous. And I look at their schedule this year. This is definitely a team that could go to a bowl game, and that would be huge in terms of building confidence and momentum for seasons to come. They start out against UTSA, University of Texas San Antonio. Then they go to El Paso at UTEP. Then they go at Pittsburgh. And they come back home for UNLV and New Mexico State. I think those first games are pristine for building momentum. Pitt is obviously going to be a tough game, but UTSA, UTEP, UNLV, and New Mexico State are very, very winnable games. New Mexico State obviously being their big rival, and they get them at home in Albuquerque. I just don't think that they are going to go any worse than 3-2 to start out this season. And then I really think that they could ride that momentum going at Wyoming versus Utah State, at San Diego State. Those are going to be tough games, but who's to say that they can't win one of those? And then they finish off. I think that they've got a great chance against Air Force and Colorado State. So this could be a 6-win team this year.
That definitely is a possibility, and I think what honestly it comes down to is, can they push opposing offenses backward? You look at their linebacker core. Dallas Bolema had 73 tackles. That's impressive. Only 6.5 for loss.
Yeah.
Can they get those tackles for loss? And on top of that, can they force turnovers? If that's something that they can do, I think definitely they can pull off some upset wins, and I think they can make some noise. I personally think they're capable of it. It's just hard to say with that second half schedule. That's a bit of a gauntlet, but going to, honestly, Wyoming on the road is not the easiest win with Smith and Herron and that offense and that Laramie crowd. You've got Utah State at home. You go on the road against San Diego State. You're at home against Air Force and Colorado State, and then you finish with a pretty rough punch at Fresno, then at Boise. It's a bit of a gauntlet, but again, this is a team that has talent, and you never know if talent is just what you need to pull you over, and that is something that New Mexico has that isn't directly being spoken for. I am confident in saying that I think New Mexico is a 6-win team. I really think that they can pull off an unexpected win somewhere down the line and really start setting something for themselves. I wish that I could necessarily say where. Probably ask me mid-season, and I can most definitely tell you where. But I really do think that they have a potential to be 4-1 after those first 5 games, and could honestly really shock some people. And I think from there it comes down to some survival wins, and really establishing that the running game and playing that sort of Davy football. And if they do it and do it well, I easily see them winning 6 games.
Yeah, I like this team. I really like Casey Carrier. He had a great year last year. He's going to have a great year this year. In one game against Air Force, he rushed for 338 yards and 3 touchdowns. I mean, that is amazing. You look at his speed, you look at his versatility, he can catch the ball out of the backfield. I think that they're going to do great things this year. Let's move on and talk about San Diego State. What interesting facts do you have out of San Diego, my friend?
There are about 1 million things you could say about San Diego.
That's true.
Because it's San Diego. And this was a fun one. According to my research, and that is a Magic School Bus reference for everyone keeping track at home of all the 90s shows that I'm referencing. According to my research, San Diego is home to the largest wooden structure in the United States of America. If you're looking for a place to stay... If you're looking for a place to stay, and this is just what the internet's told me, head out to the Hotel de Coronado, 65,000 square feet, entirely made of wood.
That is a very large wooden structure, Steve.
It's huge, yeah, and I think it's, I'd go there. It has some history. It even has some splendor behind it. But I have the most intense feeling that you have the fact of all facts, because you're giving me that face.
The fact of all facts. Are you ready for this, Rock Jock fans?
I can't wait.
Oh, I'm excited. So, when San Diego State University was first formed out of 2 different colleges, they tried to decide on a mascot name, a nickname for their athletic program. And a few things were thrown out. They had the Thoroughbreds and the Professors, which I think is a very fitting name for a university.
Look at that.
But the kicker and the ultimate mascot in the history of all mascots would be the Wampus Cats.
What?
The Wampus Cats. So I had no idea what in the world a Wampus Cat would be.
Yeah, what?
It's not an animal that I am aware of. And so I had to do some research, found out that the Wampum tribe, native from California, had a tradition where the women would dress up in cougar skins. So like full out cougar apparel. And I'm not talking BYU or Washington State. I'm talking like the skin of a cougar.
The actual animal.
Yeah, and dance around. So I thought that would be a pretty intimidating thing. We're going to post a picture that we found on Google Images.
I'm excited to check this guy out.
Yeah.
So it's not an actual cat then?
No, it's a dead cat.
Like a tribal... Okay.
Being worn by a woman.
If I'm impressed with this photo, I will go to my dying day telling San Diego State that the Aztecs was the wrong mascot, which is saying something because few mascots are better than the Aztecs.
Well, the
I think
Aztecs
it's a great
is
one.
super cool, but Wampus Cats, I mean, that takes the cake.
How do you deny being a Wampus cat?
That's right. I would be just terrified out of my mind to go against Wampus Cats.
Even down, and I'll drop another 90s reference. T.J. Detweiler, Recess, that Womps. Is there a better way to say you're frustrated than that Womps my cat?
I don't know. I could think of a few, but that's a pretty good one.
So all Wampus cats aside, let's talk about the Aztecs and check out San Diego State. Preston, your thoughts?
My thoughts. San Diego State, kind of eerily similar to Nevada in the way that they run their offense. And New Mexico, actually. Not Nevada. Sorry, New Mexico. In that they like to run the ball a lot. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. They averaged 220 rushing yards a game last year. That's 20th in the FBS. Their passing yards were way down there, 175 a game. That's 107th. That's like right around the realm of Hawaii. But their defense was pretty darn good. It took a while for them to figure it out. They gave up a lot of points against South Dakota to start out the season last year, but their defense really shored it up, and I think that one of the mainstays of that defense is Nat Bear. He plays the Aztec position, and he's just a monster. He's out to kill you out there.
81 tackles.
Yeah, 81 tackles.
Gracious.
And if you look out there, he's just all over the field. If you look at his highlights, he's getting everywhere. He's running after the ball. He's flying around. And he plays at Aztec, like I said, which is kind of a hybrid linebacker, defensive back position, which I think is a great system that they run out of San Diego State. So I think that, it's a very good defense. It's a very potent rushing offense. It's hard to see a lot of glaring weaknesses with this team. But what do you think, Steve?
Well, one thing, I wouldn't even call it a glaring weakness, but one weakness definitely is their passing game. It's hard to say what Dingwell will do. We don't have huge presence at the wide receiver, but do you need that with a guy like Adam Uema?
Yeah.
Watching Adam Uema's tape today, fewer guys can work turf the way Adam Uema works turf. We were talking about it earlier, quick footwork.
Yeah.
All he really needs is about a half step's worth of a juke, and then he can go.
Yeah, if you look at, there was a couple runs, man. One especially that I'm thinking of against BYU in their bowl game, which they lost. But if you look at his tape from that game, he just jukes like 5 guys on this one run, and it was so impressive. Adam Uema, in my opinion, he's probably the number one running back. Casey Carrier is in that discussion as well, but the number one running back in the conference.
Yeah, I think he definitely brings so much to the table, really runs that offense really well. It'll just be interesting to see how they can somewhat supplement that in the passing game. I think the next step for them needs to be, can they use the strength of Adam Uema to open up opportunities to get the ball downfield and create a stronger balanced attack? That being said, actually, I'm very impressed with this defense. I'm a huge Bear fan. I don't know if we have already, but we need to get a highlight film up on Twitter just to show you guys really the ability that the Bear has. In fact, he's someone that I think could make some noise on the Defensive Player of the Year skin. Was a name that I didn't bring up last time, but we have a lot. And also Eric Pinkins on the war side of the ball. So there's the Aztec side of the ball, guys, and the war side of the ball.
Which is freaking awesome. Let's be honest. I would love to be the war back in a defensive scheme. I mean, wouldn't you?
That's a great name.
The war back. Isn't that cool?
And if you're not the war back, you're the Aztec back. Do you have a good run-up on how that system works and want to educate our listeners?
So they run the 3-3-5, which is a system that's very unorthodox. Usually when you talk about defenses, you talk about their front 7, either 4 defensive linemen and 3 linebackers, or a 3-4, which is 3 linemen and 4 linebackers. But they run a 3-3-5 with the 3 safeties. So you have the middle safety and then the war and the Aztec safeties. And those guys, they're the perfect combination of size and speed. They can hit people. They're really good at tackling, but they can get out in coverage as well.
Absolutely. But before we move on from their defense and anything altogether, there's one name we are entirely missing at the linebacker position, and I know just saying his name is going to make my partner Preston swoon. Let's talk about Jake Feely.
Man, Jake Feely. He is... Not only is he a good linebacker, but you just look at his hair. Just look at his hair. If you haven't seen the Jake Feely locks, do a search on Google, because this guy has got some beautiful hair.
I would say it's about 30% Fabio, 20% Clay Matthews, 50% Leonard. I don't even know what the other 50% is, but 100% Silk.
It's beautiful. Troy Polamalu, take a seat, my friend, because Jake Feely with defensive hair, that's the guy.
The only thing is that Troy Polamalu's hair also doubles as storage.
That's true.
Like, what was that guy who went to the Bengals camp and he held like a 6-pack of beer in his beard?
Yeah.
Troy Polamalu could put like a Thanksgiving dinner in his hair.
Well,
So it has a strength. But as far as just allure goes, I mean, Jake Feely could be Skeletor, and his hair has to get him a date.
oh yeah, absolutely. So I mean, but you look at his numbers defensively as well. He was so impressive on the defensive side of the ball. It wasn't just his hair. He had 79 tackles. He's one of those guys just like Nat Bear. He's flying around. He's hitting people hard. I think that he's going to have a huge year. This defense only gets better, in my opinion. But we'll see, how everything falls for the Aztecs this year. I look at their schedule. They've got a tough schedule to start their, Eastern Illinois, which is actually traditionally a very good FCS team. But then you go at Ohio State and then come home for Oregon State. Those are going to be two very tough games. Then you go at New Mexico State, which is going to be easy. I mean, the Southern Aggies are just not good. And then Nevada, Air Force, Fresno. So this is a good combination of starting it out pretty tough, letting it off a little bit, building some momentum. But where do you see their win total ending up?
That's an interesting question. I mean, I want to say that they have the talent and ability to increase on their wins. It's hard to speak, and I'd have to sit and do the math on that. I will say that if they were to pull together a 10-win season, and I'm not saying they necessarily will, I just don't feel that happening just out of my gut, they have the possibility. Some of their tougher games are at home. And, they have Boise at home, they have Fresno at home, they have New Mexico at home. There's a chance for them to pull something together. I am going to say this. I have them beating Oregon State. I think that's going to be one of our Goliath victories, and I really think that that's possible. Mm-hmm. And you're also, by the way, disclaimer everyone, you're going to hear more about what we call our Goliath alerts. That we're going to talk about that later. So I just spoiled that whole surprise.
Spoiler.
Or I just gave it an awesome cliffhanger, and you're going to hear more about it later. So keep listening to our show. Anyway, I see that as a potential win. I think they have the talent for that. The thing for me is not necessarily that a double-digit season gets you to elite status nationwide, but there's a prowess that comes with being a 10-win team, and I just don't feel that out of them right now. I see them at no more than 9 wins, potentially 8, just looking at the caliber of teams they're going to finish off with, but I don't necessarily see that as an issue. For San Diego State, what that means is consistency, and that's a big deal. I think that they're a team that's here to stay and are going to continue to be competitive and are going to make noise for a good while here in the Mountain West Conference.
Yeah, with their consistency, this was a team and a program that was kind of up and down for a long time, and I really think that they've finally developed a sense of, we can do this year in and year out. I'm going to say 8 wins this year, which isn't a problem. They're facing tougher competition. I think the Mountain West overall has improved. So I think they're going to get 8 wins, go to a pretty good bowl, and represent the Mountain West Conference well. I really just don't think that they've got it in them to be the West Division champions, but they're going to be a solid team for sure.
I definitely agree. So there are our second third of our Mountain West team breakdown. So tune in next time. We're going to finish off our breakdown, and then we're going to start going crazy with some actual predictions. We're going to start talking about where these guys are going. But I'm having fun talking about these guys. We have some fun teams, fun cities here in the Mountain West Conference.
Well, Steve, now that we've broken down these teams and we've talked a lot about divisions and everything, I know that you and I kind of have differing opinions as to which division is actually stronger.
We most certainly do, Mr. Preston, and I would like to just point out that generally, I think Preston and I, we're a good team.
Yeah.
I think I would even say we're friends at this point, and we generally like to agree on some stuff, but I just can't sleep well with what this comes down to is you picked a division as the top division, and I just don't think that's the top division. Well, and I think it's time we settle this here on Rock Jocks.
All right, well, let's do it then. My division that I'm going to be sticking with is the Mountain Division. I really like the Mountain Division, and I know you're going to talk about, how fancy schmancy the West Division is with their quarterbacks and stuff, but my quarterbacks are pretty darn good. I mean, I know that you're on the Brett Smith bandwagon, so I don't even have to talk about how good he is. But Chucky Keaton and Joe Southwick, those are good quarterbacks. And I think that they can compete any day with a David Fales or a Derek Carr. And top to bottom, I just really think that the teams are better. Yeah, obviously Fresno State has our preseason offensive and defensive players of the year, but we've already talked about DeMarcus Lawrence, man. We've already talked about Jake Dowdy and Zach Vigil at Utah State. These guys are really good defenders as well. So I don't want to hear all your like I said, fancy schmancy talk about the quarterbacks in the West Division, but I really think the Mountains got it done.
Well, that's interesting that you should bring up quarterbacks. I was just traipsing through our numbers here, Mr. Croshaw, and it has occurred to me that there are only 2 quarterbacks currently listed as starters who posed more than 4,000 yards last season, and I was wondering if you could just drum up those names for me.
Derek Carr.
I believe one's Derek Carr. He does go to Fresno State University. What's the other one?
David Fales.
I believe it's David Fales. Look at that. The highest yardage out of our 2 quarterbacks who pose the highest yardage are in the West Division. And if you don't mind me, there's another quarterback who's the leading rusher. What's his? I'm forgetting his name.
Cody's his name.
Is it Cody Fajardo?
It's Cody
out of the
Fajardo.
University of Nevada? Look at that. So our 2 leading passers and our leading rusher out of nowhere in the West Division. So you know what? I'll give you, and I have more numbers that I could give if I wanted to, but I'll give you that the Mountain Division just might be the most competitive division. I'm just saying that the numbers don't lie. The West Division is the best division. So not only do I have an argument, I have a catchphrase. Give me my trophy.
Well, here's the thing, Mr. Schwartzman. Yes, you've got those numbers, but let's look at the bottom of the West Division, shall we?
So you're going to play dirty.
I'm going to play dirty. I think, not only do I think, but the numbers do not lie. The bottom of, the quote-unquote bottom of the Mountain Division is much stronger than the bottom of the West Division.
Excuse me?
Yes, much stronger. I'm pretty sure we broke down Hawaii today and New Mexico, right? And those 2 teams are picked to finish last in their respective divisions. But which team did we say was a sleeper team?
I mean, technically we said New Mexico. That might have been a thing we said, but I'm not,
Wait, maybe let's not use the pronoun we. I believe that you said.
If we're going to go semantics, yeah, okay, fine. If you're just going to quote me and be a stickler, yeah, I said those words, but come on,
Yeah, so your 2 of your favorite players are in my division. Are they not Brett Smith and Casey Carrier?
I believe I said Casey Carrier was my favorite player by name. I mean, I've never gone on record to say he's my favorite running back. I mean, come on. I mean, he's good. He's great. He's fantastic. But, he's a wonderful running back. But come on. Don't put words in my mouth.
Okay. Well, I think that if you look at the Mountain Division, top to bottom, it's much stronger. Colorado State, Air Force, New Mexico are better teams than UNLV and Hawaii. I think that all 3 of those teams are better than UNLV and Hawaii. So when the end of the season comes around and UNLV and Hawaii are 0-3 both against those 3 Mountain Division teams, let's just say Preston was right,
Okay, fine. And you know what? I find it interesting that you're going to bring Casey Carrier into the mix, and we were friends too. So yeah, sure, yeah, fine. 1,400 yards, 5 yards per carry. That's a lot to speak of. But right under that, you got a guy 1,200 yards, 5 yards per carry, very underrated. Tim Cornette from UNLV. So I just don't see where that oversees it too much. And for you to attack the University of Hawaii, coached by the legendary, honored, and hallowed Norm Chow, I think personally is an absolute disgrace to all sports arguments. Everyone at a Buffalo Wild Wings right now is turning in their booth right now.
Turning in their booth.
Turning in their booth. That's a phrase. Hashtag.
That's a good one. But we both said that Hawaii is going to be a 3-win team this year, and that they are one of the worst offenses in the nation. And we haven't even talked about the top of the Mountain Division. Okay, we haven't talked about it. I think the Mountain Division has the 2 best teams in the conference. Yeah, I know, right?
You're going to get that bold.
I'm going to get that
so we're
bold.
going to have this discussion now.
Yes, we are.
Okay.
I think that Utah State and Boise State are the 2 top teams, and when they meet, it will be we could just end the game there. We could just say, "Hey, this is the conference championship game. We don't even have to play the West Division."
Okay, really quick. Last episode, who is it that you said was your honest pick for the conference title team?
I think that it was Fresno.
I believe it was Fresno State.
Okay, can I be a little bit of a flip-flopper? Just a little bit?
Yeah, you can John Kerry if you want to.
John Kerry?
But
okay.
remember, that just means that your argument's shaky at best.
Okay, well, I understand that I said that Fresno State was, quote-unquote, my pick.
And listeners, that is what he said. It was those words.
Yes, you can go back and listen to it. I did say that Fresno State would win the Mountain West Conference, but I don't know. I just don't know, man. It's a really tough one. I think that Fresno State would have a really hard time against Utah State and Boise State. So let's just leave it at that.
Okay, and just one final argument, and then we're going to go ahead and end this because I need my chance to close as well. Really quick, the Mountain West prediction for Offensive Player of the Year?
Derek Carr.
And you said your personal pick for the potential Player of the Year was? Oh gosh, I believe
David Fales.
I believe it was David Fales.
We've already talked about this.
Okay, I'm just saying. So why don't we go ahead and say that we're just going to agree to disagree on this? I mean, I obviously when I had the catchphrase, but
you did have the catchphrase. I'll give you that.
Hey Preston.
Yes.
I love you.
Love you too, Steve.
So there's our take on the divisions. I think we can say without question that we pose some very, very competitive divisions, which speaks a lot for a great conference. This is just going to be a fun year of football. Are you excited, listeners?
I'm excited.
I'm stoked. I can't wait. Football needs to start. I mean, it means school starts, but whatever. I'll get past that. Football just needs to start. So really quick, we're going to get to what we learned in a second. We just want to bring to your attention that we need your help to make Rock Jocks just a little bit better. We want to announce a segment we're going to be doing in every episode now called Ask the Jocks. So go ahead and get on Twitter. Follow us at MWC Rock Jocks on Twitter. That's www.twitter.com if you're not averse to the internet. Go ahead and follow us at MWC Rock Jocks. And we're going to make an invite before we record every week that we need you to ask the Jocks a question. So use the hashtag AskTheJocks, ask, A-S-K, the Jocks, and post, any questions that you'd like us to answer. Anything about the conference you'd like us to cover. We're happy to filter your questions, take some time talking about your concerns. Next on the list, we're going to give a topic every week that we'd like you to give your personal concern on. And our topic for this week, Preston, is?
Divisions, championship, title game, really just your predictions for this season.
So we want your bold-faced predictions. What do you see the conference title game in football being this year? Where do you see our bowl games going? Maybe do some research, see what bowl games Mountain West is liable for, and who you see playing in those games. We want your predictions. We want your questions. Ask the Jocks. And with that, let's move on.
What did we learn today, Steve? Let's do it.
Well, honestly, there's one thing that I learned. I'm going to be completely frank. I learned a lot about football.
That's good.
I learned a lot about our ability to hold a debate for several minutes. But I especially learned one thing, and that's that officially, I'm going on record, San Diego State, you chose the wrong mascot. Because I'm looking at the photo that Preston showed me of a wampus cat, and it's about as fierce as anything I've seen in my entire life.
Isn't it?
It's frightening, and it's intimidating, and check it out. We're going to post it on the page, but wampus cats probably changed my life tonight, so thank you. And San Diego State, I love you. You know I do, but wampus cat.
I learned, Steve, that even though we are good friends, we can disagree on something. And do you know what? It's not bad to disagree on this subject because this is going to be a great conference, And while we might disagree, it's going to be a lot of fun to see who's right.
I'm in if you're in. Let's do this.
I'm in.
Well, I think needless to say, we can say that we just need football to start. But until then, we're going to keep you warm and cozy here on Rock Jocks. We want to thank you so much for taking your time to listen. Follow us on Twitter. Check out everything else we've got going on the Front Row Network. And until then, I'm Steve Schwartzman.
I'm Preston Croshaw.
Join the climb.